Maybe you want to start intermittent fasting and you're not sure of how to start. Maybe you're doing it already, but it's not working well or it's being too hard. That may be one of the few variables that are still missing. So what I want to give you in this video is a guide on how to plan, how to get started with intermittent fasting, or how to optimize a couple of variables so you can maximize your result. When you are thinking about intermittent fasting, here we are talking about a sub-modality of it, because there's many ways of intermittent fasting. And the sub-modality that we are talking about is also called time-restricted eating. That this is when you have times of the day that you are fasting, and this is called your fasting window. And you have times of the day when you're eating, and this is called your feeding window. And then every day you go through these two windows. In terms of time-restricted eating, there are 4 variables that you want to plan and be aware of to optimize them. These variables are length, frequency, timing, and meals. So first, let's talk about length. Length is basically for how long are you going to fast. And there are different options that we do on a beginner level of intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating. And you can fast for anywhere between 12 to 16 hours on average. And there are different types of benefits, or the benefits they get better as you go forward, but 12 to 14 hours already show a couple of benefits. For example, we have a meta-analysis that was done by the California State University. They basically got all these studies that were looking into 12 to 14 hour fast. They were mostly Ramadan studies. And they found out that on average, people doing this for a month, they were losing 1 to 3% of body weight in fat. And also, not only burning fat, they're also improving some health markers. So for example, the triglyceride level of these participants of all these studies in Ramadan decreased from anywhere between 4 to 37%. And this only with a 12 to 14 hour fast. So it's not something too hard to do. But when you go all the way to 16 hours, this is when you are likely to experience the peak benefits of a daily fasting protocol. Check this out. There's this one study from the University of North Carolina, and they did a mathematical model to simulate everything that happens in your body once you are fasting. And when you reach 16 hours of fast, this is when your insulin levels go the lowest, your glucagon levels go the highest, and your glycogen levels go to the bottom, so you start burning more fat. If you want more details, check our last video about intermittent fasting that I go a bit deeper into this study. And here you are playing for the long term. Fasting is not going to change your life tomorrow morning, but if you apply this consistently for a couple of months, this is when you get the benefits. The best way to stick to any fasting protocol is to do something that fits your schedule and your habits pretty well. So better is start by 12 hours. And then every 1 to 2 weeks, you increase 1 hour if you want to go all the way to 16 hours. Next variable that we need to look at is frequency. Frequency basically means how many days in a week are you doing intermittent fasting. The main options are 3 days, 5 days, and 7 days. And it will depend on the benefits that you want. So how do you choose them? 3 days is mostly if you want to give it a try. You're not going to get a lot of benefits from intermittent fasting if you're doing this only for 3 days in a week. But this is for you to test the waters. Does it fit well in my agenda? How do I find it? Is this something that I want to keep on going? If you do this for 5 days, is when you're looking for a bit more practicality. Maybe I do all my intermittent fasting on weekdays, but then weekends are a bit more erratic, and I want to have a flexible schedule. That works as well. 7 days is when you want to maximize your benefits. And this is where all our scientific studies on intermittent fasting are done. Most of these studies that talk about benefits are done with 7 days in a week. So if you want to go all in and get all the benefits, 7 days is your choice. The next variable that we need to think about is timing. So if you have parts of the day that you're fasting, parts of the day that you're eating, when is it that is going to happen? If you're fasting for 12 hours, you're starting this week, this is pretty straightforward. You either have your feeding window from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then you fast from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Or a feeding window from 7 to 7 or from 9 to 9, it would be more or less like that. But as you progress and you get to close to 16 hours, this is when you need to think a little bit more about, because you're probably skipping some meals. There are 5 things that you want to take into consideration to figure out when is the best time to fast. And here again, there's not really a time of the day that will be better for fat loss. It really depends on how it fits your schedule. So the first thing that you want to take into consideration is your work routine. You know, how flexible is it? And can you have meals during work? If you cannot have meals during work, it will be hard to plan a feeding window that you need to have a meal at 3 p.m., for example. So if that is something that you need to take in consideration, you need to work with your feeding window around that. Then the second thing that you want to think about is family traditions. You know, maybe you have this tradition that every Wednesday or every evening you have dinner with your family. And then if you plan a feeding window that you are no longer having dinner, very soon you're going to figure out that that was not the best idea. And there will be friction and you'll not be able to continue the practice. So think about that. Third, do you have any social commitments that are recurring and that are important to you that you should plan ahead? Maybe you don't have dinner with family, but you have breakfast with your company, or you have, Friday dinner with friends that happen every Friday. So if that happens, your feeding window needs to encompass that meal. Number 4, you want to think about your strength training. If you're doing some type of intense exercise, you can do it fasted, but chances are that your performance is even better if you're fed. So if you're lifting weights, consider having it after you have your first meal of the day at least. And finally, the last thing that you want to think about is your sleep time. And this is because you want to finish your last meal of the day more or less 3 hours before going to bed. Because when you are digesting food, you raise your body temperature. And quality of sleep depends on your body's ability to decrease its own temperature. So if you eat too close to going to bed, you will see that you may even sleep 7 to 8 hours, but the quality of sleep and the energy in the next morning is not going to be as good as if you had finished your meal a little bit before. Now we need to think about meals. And how many meals? How much should I eat? What do I eat when I'm eating? And what do I eat when I'm fasting? That's a very common question. First, when you have your feeding window, this is the practicality of intermittent fasting. You're not going to worry about changing what you eat, at least in the first phase. Maybe later on when you want to optimize even further your practice, then you think on how to have even more nutritious diet. But the main idea is you keep your nutrition habits, the foods that you eat the same. You only change when you eat. So that means you don't remove foods, but you also don't add foods. So when you are outside of your feeding window, in your fasting window, then it would depend on your main goal. If your main goal is fat loss, then what you want to have in your fasting window is really 0 calories. That means only water, or black coffee with no sugar, or tea with no sugar. Because the main benefit that intermittent fasting provides to burn fat is by decreasing the amount of calories intuitively without needing to count them. So if you add the calories by putting sugar in your coffee, you are defeating the purpose that gives you fat loss. Now, if you don't care about fat loss, you're fine, you're lean where you are, and you are only worried about the longevity benefits of intermittent fasting. In these cases, this is when you can have things like bulletproof coffee. They still have calories, but don't raise your insulin levels. Now that we thought about these 4 variables, we are ready to plan how to get started with intermittent fasting. So let me give you an example of a 3-week plan. So if you start like tomorrow, this is one of the things that you could possibly do. So let's imagine that I have my week 1 here. And because it's week 1, I'm starting with 12 hours of fasting. I will start slowly, already getting the benefits, but feeling how it fits into my schedule. So length will be 12 hours. And I'll do this 7 days in a week because it's 12 hours fast. If I'm doing 12 hours fast in only 3 or 5 days, it doesn't give you me much. So I'm doing this for 7 days in a week. And my timing would be 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It's pretty straightforward. Then on week 2, I'm going to pace it because 12 hours per day was pretty easy, so on week 2, I'm gonna fast for 14 hours. But my frequency will be only 5 days because I want to keep my weekends a bit more flexible to see how it fits in my lifestyle. And then what I'm going to do with my timing is that I bring from 8 a.m. my breakfast all the way to 10 a.m. So 10 a.m. my breakfast, 8 p.m. is when I finish my dinner, and here I have a 10-hour feeding window and a 14-hour fasting window. And then week 3 is when I'm going all in. I'm going for the results. So I will add 2 hours to my fasting window, and it's going to be 16 hours. And because it's all in, I'm going to do this for 7 days in a week. But now, I want to have my last meal a little bit earlier so I can digest all the food before going to bed. So I will bring my breakfast to 11 a.m. and I'll pull my dinner to 7 p.m. So all my feeding window happens in 8 hours, and then I have 16 hours of fasting every single day. And this is exactly how you plan all the variables that you need to get started with intermittent fasting. There are 2 things that I want to bring to your attention because it will help a lot. One of the things that I see happening very often with people who start intermittent fasting is that idea that, I just fasted for 16 hours. So I deserve to go and get the pizza, the beer, and all the ice cream in the fridge. Fasting is not a strategy so that you can have dessert every day. Fasting is a strategy for you to improve your health, for you to improve your body composition. So you don't need to remove foods, but also don't add foods that you usually don't have now because you're fasting, because that would defeat the purpose that you are looking for. And the second thing is, if you are on a fat loss journey, you want to really make sure that your body is focusing on burning fat and preserving the muscle mass that you have. And a really good thing to do there to make sure that this happens is to do some type of strength training. And even if you don't have access to a gym, there is a way of developing muscle mass at home. In fact, my next video is going to be about this. So here's what I want to ask you. If you have any questions about intermittent fasting, how to get started, how to optimize, just put in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell button, so when the video about strength training at home comes up, you get notified. I see you in the next video.